Assalamu alaikum. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Happy to see you once again for lecture 7 of drama 2, that is modern drama. What we did in our last lecture, we had an in-depth analysis of our major characters of The Doll's House, written by Ibsen. We moved on by analyzing themes one by one and discussed the major themes of the play. And what we are doing in today's talk, we are again moving on with the understanding of the themes which are emerging in the text. However, this time we are tackling them by understanding the use of symbolism in the play. Now, I recall your memory about symbolism. Symbolism we discussed in one of our previous lectures in quite detail, and we also discussed how does symbolism play its role in meaning making in any kind of text, particularly in drama. Discussing symbolism in reference with The Doll's House, we will be moving on by seeing how Ibsen sees the symbolic use of language and symbolic use of characters and symbolic use of objects in the drama written by him. And then we will discuss a few major symbolic features used in the drama, such as the Christmas tree, skylark, toys, New Year, door, macarons, as well as the title. So let's start with our today's discussion. Refreshing your memories about symbols. Symbols are objects, characters, figures, or anything. Can be colors, can be sounds, can be any invisible object that is being referred to again and again, used to represent abstract ideas or concepts. And symbols are very effectively used by writers to strengthen the themes of the dramas. So, symbolism in A Doll's House, Ibsen significantly uses these symbols to represent the identities and ideologies of 19th and 20th century. Symbolism becomes necessary in situation when writers do not want to write things in black and white, and they want to embed more and more meanings in between line instead of writing them clearly in black and white on the paper. And we understand that the drama that belongs to modern era from the 20th century somehow represents the similar kind of features, where writers wish to convey a lot by saying little, and that is only possible if they are making a very clever use of these literary devices. Ibsen uses different kind of symbols that relate to not only culture, religion, politics, but also that bear the psychological effect indeed. Symbols like door, macaron, embroidery, dress, tree, and even the title of the drama itself is symbolic and influence at the society. What does Ibsen say about the use of symbolism in general, and how would he see the symbolic use of art in his own drama? He says that I used symbolism in this drama to try and give the reader the impression of experiencing a piece of reality. This is what he says, is that the way he is using symbolic references inside the drama is basically to enable one reader to live in those moments which he is trying to show to them. So letting them experience what is happening in reality. The language, setting, and even dresses, parties are realistic feature shown in symbols. Ibsen portrays the feature of a middle class society and feminities belonging to that society, ideologies as well as identities of people as individual, as a family unit, and as society in this drama. And he believes that in the freedom, he believes in the women's freedom and tries to portray the same. all kind of literary devices that Ibsen uses in his drama, particularly symbolism, revolves around manifesting these themes that he settled in the play. Now, what kind of symbols Ibsen make use of? He uses black color as a symbol. Now, this black color is used in black hat and black cross, and both of these symbols are basically representing death, representing giving that sad impression, giving that slow impression, giving that ugly and dying impression of society. Especially black cross relates to Dr. Rank, and he uses this symbol not as a symbolic device by Ibsen, but as a symbol inside the drama to convey his reality of dying very soon to his dear husband, to his dear friend, sorry. Then Fisher girl costume. When you get dressed, you try to show that self to people. No matter whether if you'll be using a dress of very bright colors, you wish to show that you are very happy today. At times you're not feeling very good, so you would like to get dressed up in kind of sober colors, in kind of dull colors. That shows that your mood is not very good today. So the kind of symbol here Ibsen uses, that's official girl costume symbol, it represents Nora's life, where she pretends to enjoy her life. She pretends to be very happy. However, whether she is or not, that we readers know very well. Again, symbol of a country, and Italy as a country symbolizes beauty, symbolizes an ideal country where one would want to go and live. A country of peace, a country of development, a country of organization. So it's the good false image of Nora's life as well. Nora, like any other woman, or like any other women of that society and of that time, would want her life to be as accurate as the country symbolizes. Norway, again, is a symbol of reality. Whether this reality is worth cherishing or this is kind of terrible reality, writer wanted to convey this very thing by showing Norway as a symbol. And we understand that Norway at that time was a kind of place which was utterly victimized by the consequences of World War I and the preparation for World War II. Now, dollhouse itself is a symbol. House is a symbol of a woman's desire. A woman would desire for a shelter, for a house, for security, a place to own, a place to live in with respect, and a place that is a part of her identity, her reality. Now, doll's house is a kind of other aspect attached to house. It's not real. A doll's house is not a real house. Although it is a beautiful house, but it relates to your fantasies. It does not exist in the reality. So the very use of doll's house is basically one reality that represents Nora's wishes and the reality of her life in the play. It also symbolizes the tendency of the characters to play roles. In a doll's house, that's a character, I would say, from a drama or from a story where everyone is just being a character and everyone is playing his or her role, being part of the story. So it does not exist in reality. So this very usage of doll's house attaches or conveys writer's idea of presenting all the characters as fabricated, as made up. Toys, another very important symbol from the story, which symbolizes the act of pushing the roles into Nora's children. At times you would find people telling you, don't make us behave like toys. We are real human beings. So we cannot behave as you would expect us to behave, or behaviors cannot be programmed into human beings. Human beings are not always predictable like toys are. Toy is a programmed machine, and it will all the time it will behave the same way, it will act the same way, it will show the same way. However, human beings are different. They cannot be programmed, and they cannot pretend for long. One day they have to come into reality. So toy itself is a symbol of a programmed machine that stands in contradiction with a human being. So we see Nora as a doll. A doll has kind of a feministic aspect attached to it. However, at the same time, it is a toy too. So not only Nora, but also her children, for whom she bought toys, are represented as doll-like figures, toy-like figures. Then macarons. These are candy-type edible things like biscuits, sweet biscuits. They symbolize Nora's deceit to her husband, Nora's deception, Nora's lies. Now, what kind of deception is this? These are little tiny acts of pleasure that Nora does it out of her mood. She would want to have these candies which her husband would not allow her. However, she would do it. And these are little acts of her deceit. So, macaron, the size of macaron is telling us the kind of lie that Nora is, committing. Nora is doing. Nora is lying to her husband. So it's not a kind of intense deceit. It's not a kind of very big matter. It's not kind of crime. However, we can see that it exists. Then the macarons are sweet. So this very representation of something that is sweet at the same time tells us that these lie did not harm Nora's husband in any way. However, they existed, telling us about Nora's personality, Nora's character, who would not avoid lying at times to fulfill her little desires. Tarantula is a kind of dance which symbolizes Nora's agitated self, Nora's agitation at her struggle with Krogstad to keep her secret a secret, and with her husband, and with her household, and with her with the society that she's living in, with her friend. She's trying to, when Mrs. Lind tells her that she has been living a very difficult life and Nora cannot imagine that kind of life, then she comes up with her own secret and Nora discloses her secret. So it's a kind of struggle that Nora is in with all of these characters. Okay, now Christmas tree symbolizes the mood of the play. How does it do that? We are going to discuss it in detail in the later part of the talk. Stockings symbolizes Nora's attitude, trying to please men, and her flirting with rank. Now that is very interesting thing. Stocking, you understand that they are more like in skin tone color. So it symbolizes Nora's attitude, a kind of transparent, you can say, cover that she uses in order to hide her true self and show very well made up, beautiful self to her husband, although it is not real, though it is real like but not real. Then she uses the same kind of attitude with Mr. Rank in order to flirt with him. Letterbox and letter symbolizes a trap for Nora and the cause of her demise. Again, embroidery is used as a symbol which symbolizes the stereotypes pressed on women, the kind of cultural, traditional expectations and actions which are related to women and womanhood, and which one has to do in any case. Ring symbolizes a kind of bond, and it more particularly conveys the marriage bond understanding. Skylark skylark is basically a bird, a singing bird. So it symbolizes the way that Tarwold treats Nora like a child, like a tiny thing who is at times is a source of pleasure to him. So we would like to have a look at these symbols in detail, and here we are discussing the Christmas tree, squirrel and skylark, toys, New Year, door, macarons, as well as the play's title. It's not that these are the only symbols which are used in the play, but these are some of the major symbols which are quite interesting in discussion. However, at the same time, I would expect from you that by reading, and while you are reading and while you are listening to this discussion and while you are doing your own analysis, by picking up on the dialogues and by picking up on the evidences that we have been discussing so far, you will be able to take more symbolic references out of the play and out of the script. So coming back to our discussion, the Christmas tree. The Christmas tree is a festive object meant to serve a decorative purpose. So you would know that a Christmas tree is a kind of static object which will remain green throughout the year, and however it is used for decorative objectives. Now Christmas tree is used as a symbol for Nora's personality. It symbolizes Nora's position in her household as a kind of static, evergreen, decorated self, the way her husband would want to look her like. It's a kind of plaything, it's a kind of thing to get pleasure from, who's pleasing to look at and adds charm to the home, to the household. Although it does not serve anything else, however, it gives you pleasure. So that is how Torvald would want to see Nora. It is decorated as Nora would be on Christmas Day and on every day, and there is a star twinkling on the top of the tree. If you happen to come across Christmas tree, you will see a bright, often red or green color star twinkling on the top of the tree. So that represents the hope and ambitions of Nora. The new year that starts from Christmas is symbolic to the feminist movements that give liberty to Nora against the male dominance. So New Year is again a symbol, and the event of Christmas, in combination with New Year, is a very strong beginning symbol used for the feministic movement that started after World War I in the 20th century. Nora is as attractive, beautiful, charming source of pleasure in multi-dimensional identity as a Christmas tree can be. She's a mother, she's a daughter, she's a wife, and she is somehow is loved by Dr. Rank as well, so she's a kind of beloved too. Hence, she is a pleasing object constructed by Ibsen as religion refers to Christmas. So if you look at a tree, it's a multi-dimensional object. No matter which angle you are taking to look at, it will look beautiful to you, and it will have a different kind of a presentation from a different angle. If you're seeing it from right, you're seeing it from left, or you're seeing from front or back side, it has a kind of angle to give you that pleasure, and its all sides are equally decorated. Okay, moving on. John Norton argues that about symbolism, the symbols are for the first time a physical reality on the stage, are mere enough to it suggest actual presence. It is therefore both fact and symbol, and from that fusion emerges the closure union of symbolism and reality, which makes the play so complexly significant. And that is what he says in The Wild Duck in 1884. So, symbolism is basically understood as a fantastic device of saying and then keeping something unsaid at the same time. There are several parallels drawn between Nora and the Christmas tree in the play. Just as Nora instructs the maid that the children cannot see the tree until it has been decorated, in the same way she tells Torvald that no one can see her in her dress, the dress that she prepares for the dance party, ball party, until the evening of the dance. So we can see something similar going on in both the situations. And she herself, it's not only that Torvald would want to see her like a Christmas tree, or she is somehow coincidentally presenting as a Christmas tree. She herself feels like an object of pleasure. Also, at the beginning of the second act, after Nora's psychological condition has begun to erode, the stage directions indicate that the Christmas tree is correspondingly D-shaped. So the kind of agitation that we see in Nora's character towards the end of Act 2, and then it is in full bloom when she presents Tarantula, a kind of mock presentation of her dance in front of her husband that she would prepare for the next evening. We see there is a lot of agony, there is a lot of anger, and hence there is a lot of D-shaped aspect attached to her dance. At the same time, we find that same kind of D-shaped self can be found in the Christmas tree. So, after analyzing the Christmas tree and Nora's character and Christmas tree as a symbol and this symbol's relevance with Nora's character, we are moving on to our second major symbol, that is this squirrel and skylark, and these are these love names, pet names that Torvald use for his wife. Is it my little lark twittering out there? Ibsen uses the animated and inanimated choices and refers Nora to innocent bird-like skylark. The linguistic choice in symbolic representation is very important, and they are particular in nature. As Fairwolf hypothesis, Fairwolf, a linguist, he says about the use of language. He says that it is very important to understand why someone uses a particular kind of word, why someone uses a particular kind of structure, why someone uses a particular kind of name. What can be a reason behind it? These names, this understanding of these names, the very much happening of these names in somebody's mind is not without any reason. There is a reason behind it. And he supports his statement by saying that language is determined by thought. Language, when language is produced, there are thoughts behind it, and that thought gives strength to manipulate and enjoy the power of language. So he's not only referring to human language, he's particularly talking about language used by men, and especially when this language is used for their wives. So when Torvald calls Nora little, there is a meaning attached to it. He considers Nora something very tiny, something little, something of probably not much importance. Then little lark. Lark is a bird. and then a bird is a singing bird as well, who is a kind of pleasing phenomenon. So that's how Torvald thinks about Nora. Nora is inhibited, is restricted in Helmer's house, and she is praised by him in metaphoric speech pattern. But at the end, the same skylark, the same pleasing phenomenon, the same singing, chattering bird is ready to fly for freedom autonomy. So why Ibsen uses a symbol of a bird for Nora, not just to reflect Torvald's understanding of her character as a little tiny thing, but that this aspect of freedom attached to a bird. A bird can fly, so a bird is naturally free to go anywhere unless the bird is caged. So that is why not any other animal is used as a symbol here but skylark. Okay, then we have toys as symbol. Yes, it will, but come here and let me show you what I have bought. And also cheap. Look, here is a new suit for Ivor, and a sword, and a horse, and a trumpet for Bob, a doll and Dolly's bedstead for Emmy. That's what Nora says in A Doll's House in Act 5. Toys are the clear picture of three kind of developments of ideology and identity. Nora has bought a horse and a sword for her son, so that male is initially represented as holder of power and authority. He has a sword and he has a horse. He can go anywhere, he can do anything, he can kill anyone, he keeps authority. While the gifts for Emmy are dolls, that is the significant example to build femininity and a difference from masculinity culturally embedded. That is why Emma is gifted by a doll. Again, Emma is going to be a doll like Nora. Ibsen says that a woman of his century is much advanced, and womanhood is a socially constructed phenomenon created by men. This helps us understanding what theme Ibsen would want to present over here regarding women and womanhood. The next symbol is New Year's Day. The action of the play is set at Christmas Eve. It's a Christmas evening. In fact, these are 3 days of Christmas, and Nora and Torvald both look forward to New Year. For what reason? New Year as the start of a new, happier phase in their lives. New because it's a new year, another year is coming up. Happier because this aspect of Christmas Eve is attached. That's a festival. So, in the new year, Torvald will start his new job, and he anticipates with excitement the extra money and admiration the job will bring to him. Nora also looks forward to Torvald's new job because she will finally be able to repay her secret debt to Krogstad. So she'll be away from all the worries and she'll be free to enjoy her life. That's how they both look forward to the new year. However, by the end of the play, things change. The nature of the New Year's start that New Year's represents for Torvald and Nora has changed dramatically. This also makes us think about the situation of Norway at that time. How would have people thought about the new year or the coming years, and how did their thoughts change into an ironic situation? They both must become new people and face radically changed ways of living. Now, after the last debate between both the characters, things changed altogether. Hence, the new year comes to mark the beginning of a truly new and different period in both their lives and their personalities. Then we see door as a symbol, as a very strong symbol, because door with the door opens and Nora comes in comes in the living room, comes on the stage, comes in the life of Torvald, and goes out of his life by slamming onto his face. So door keeps quite an important position here in the play as a symbol. Setting and staging. Play opens with door in setting. Nora walks around towards door is sign of imprisonment of women of 19th century under the bond of marriage. She seems to be happy, but in fact critics peep inside the door and find the femininity and identities of domestic women. So we see the importance of door in staging the reality of women and the reality of marriage bond, as Ibsen calls it, an imprisonment. A room furnished comfortably and tastefully, but not extravagantly. At the back, a door to the right leads to the entrance hall, and other to the left leads to Helmer's study. Between the doors stands a piano. In the middle of the left-hand wall is a door, and beyond it a window. Near the window are a round table, armchairs, and a small sofa. In the right-hand wall, at the further end, another door, and on the same side, near the footlights, a stove, two easy chairs, and a rocking chair. Between the stove and the door, a small table. It's the total stage setting of the entire play throughout all the events. There is no change. So you can see how many doors are there, how many openings are there, and how often do you find them see open. Most of the time they are closed. The whole drama is performed inside the room. There is no outside staging. That also brings the capitalist perspective of the society, with a household with closed doors inhibiting the movement of the family inside, and particularly women inside. The door opening is actually view of the domestic situation in particular society. We find at the dismissal of the relations, again the door is in front of Nora to celebrate freedom, as earlier she entered in cage created by men. And then the next symbol is Macron's symbol. As I just discussed, what is a macaron? It's a sweet candy-like biscuit. Ibsen provides non-verbal feminist clues as Nora's shawl, macaron, and tree. Just now, puts the bag of macarons into her pocket and wipes her mouth. Come in here, Torvald, and see what I have bought. What Nora calls here. The self-independence is governed by Torvald is depicted by Ibsen. Suffrage movement was one of the central reaction against this male monopoly. Women was not free physically and oppressed psychologically too. It's not only that they cannot move around without their husband's permission, they can't even eat. They can't even think what they want to think because they are so terribly oppressed by them. That is why Nora is subordinate creature to Helmer. And it's not that she is subordinate to her husband only. She has been brought up this way even by her father. She shuts the door. She continues to laugh. She takes off her things. She takes a bag of macarons out of her pocket and eats one or two. Again, macarons are not here shown as little acts of Nora's rebellious nature. They are also shown as a kind of little tiny holes from where Nora can breathe from. She can do little things, though they are meaningless. They do not exist even as action. However, they bring some fresh air to Nora. In the male dominance, the issue of identities and feminities is at the verge of collapse, and the gradual intensity of this tyranny make persuade to other sex to rebel and snatch the freedom that was got by Nora at the end of the play. She transgendered her identity. Okay, now we will see how the title is symbolic in nature. The title of the drama is The Doll's House. The house that belongs to doll. The title is in itself a symbolic note describing the femininity and identity of the Victorian society doll is a playful object for everyone. We see how Croxted plays with Nora. We see how Rank plays with Nora. Although he has his true nature and true feelings behind it, but this act of revealing his love at this stage is a kind of play in Nora's life now. And we see how Nora's husband takes advantage of her position. So Victorian society doll is a playful object for everyone, and even that is a decoration piece feeling less and emotionless. So we find how the object of Christmas tree is represented here as a feelingless and emotionless thing, as Nora is. She's a puppet in the hand of Torvald, who wants to push the settings, push the strings according to his wish. He would like to manipulate things the way he would wish to. And Nora behaves like a puppet and plays like a puppet. Nora also apparently functions as commanded doll, but in the end of the play, writer is succeeded to awake her from subordination and rebel from the male dominance. We see throughout the play the worries Nora is keeping relates to how he's able to repay the debt in the beginning, then how she's able to repay the debt in the beginning, and then how she's able to earn her husband's happiness, how she's able to help him in his ill and sick health, how she's able to now repay the debt, how she's able to now hide her secret, how she's able to now help herself from being blackmailed by Croxted, so on and so forth. However, all this is basically she's doing. She's keeping all these emotions in order to apparently function in the kind of household that Torvald created for her. Nora also apparently functions as commanded doll, but in the end of the play, writer is succeeded to awake her from this subordinate self of Nora. And she rebels, and rebels against male domination. While knowing, when she gets to know what are the real feelings of Torvald towards her, she gets to know that she wasted her loyalties and sincerity. And it's time that she needs to go back to her life. She's now independent and making her decision according to her will and choice. The last line she uttered is sign of change, bringing the equal rights without gender segregation. The whole drama, although this is very debatable issue, and this had been debated a lot when the drama was first screened, this gender segregation that at that time, as I would have mentioned that earlier too, the ending of the play was not acceptable for people and for critics of that time. They thought that how come a woman can leave her husband, and how come a woman can leave her house, and how come a woman can leave her children? So what they would think, a man can do that, and a man can do that very well. However, a woman cannot. And Ibsen, by giving this ending, proved that there shouldn't be any gender segregation in the institution of marriage, and the roles should be equally distributed with the equal freedom for both of the partners. And that is what we learned when we were discussing writer's background before starting the drama. The whole drama is full with linguistic, lexical and symbolic references representing the female of Ibsen's A Doll's House. Okay, after having our talk regarding symbols and symbolic use of literary devices in The Doll's House by Henrik Ibsen, we are moving on to another dimension of critical analysis, that is about the thought-provoking aspects that Ibsen brings out in the text. We will discuss two of them in our today's lecture. One is money and other is gender segregation. Regarding money, we will discuss, do we have any typical social attitudes toward money? And gender segregation poses question, do we have gender-related specific attitudes in relationships? And particularly here we are discussing the institution of marriage. So the question comes up, do we observe Ibsen's work conveying any specific social attitude keeping money as a concern? Let's see. We are comparing Torvald's and Nora's characters and their attitudes towards money. Torvald and Nora's first conversation establishes Torvald as the member of the household who makes and controls the money matters, and Nora as the one who spends it. If you remember the very first act and the beginning of the play, when Nora comes out from outside having done her Christmas shopping, and Torvald greeting her and asking her where was she, and then criticizing her for being spendthrift. Torvald repeatedly teases Nora about her spending, about her overspending rather, and at one point Mrs. Lind points out that Nora was a big spender in her younger days. So it's not only that Torvald criticizes Nora, we find Mrs. Lind also criticizes Nora for her being spendthrift, because Mrs. Lind, she has a background where she went through this state where she could not maintain a good lifestyle because she lacked money, and she was one from who were deprived of luxuries of life. These initial comments paint Nora as shallow woman who is overly concerned with material delights. That's how Ibsen presents it, and that's how we see it. Now, do we find her like that or we don't? You are to support your answers, support your understanding of her character with references from the text. Yet Nora's generous tip to the porter in the play's opening scene shows that she's not a selfish woman. More important, once the secret of Nora's loan is made known to the audience, we see that Nora's interest in money stems from her concern for her family, for her husband, and for her family's welfare than from petty material desires. So if there are proofs, if there are references that would help us understand that Nora, she had some kind of nature where she will feel herself bent upon material desires. She also has a character where she looks for money, but not for her personal pleasure, but for the sake of her family's welfare. Now we find that we realize that the excitement she has expressed over Torvald's new well-paying job results from the fact that more spending money means she can finally pay off her debt to Krogstad. So how would you analyze it? How would you understand it? Her being happy on her husband's well-paid job, is it for the reason that she'll have more money to spend? She'll have more money to do her shopping? Or she looks forward to have a life free of the only worry she has, and that is repaying the debt to Crockstead. While Torvald seems less enthralled by money because he doesn't talk about it except to chastise Nora for her spending. He is obsessed with having a beautiful home, including a beautiful wife. Although we do not find Torvald talking about his money as a desire a lot in the play, he does express and convey that he wants to have a beautiful house, beautiful home, and a beautiful wife. So beauty costs. Beauty is not free of cost. Okay, so Torvald considers these things important to his reputation, and keeping up this reputation requires money. So is this reputation only by will be served by keeping a beautiful house, or when you have to keep up your reputation, you have to keep up your presentation, and when you have to keep up your presentation altogether, you have to keep up with so many things. So will Torvald not be using that money for his desire of keeping up with his good reputation? That's the question. So do we find Torvald as wanting money as Nora, or we see that Torvald has some other kind of desires which basically are we in the beginning attach with Nora's character, however they truly reside in Torvald's character. Although Torvald accuses Nora, blames her for wasting money, Nora spends her money mostly on worthy causes, whereas Torvald, who would defend himself as a wise person utilizing money very wisely, uses his money for selfish, shallow purposes. Now, we see that Torvald perceives Nora as a foolish woman who is ignorant of the way society works. She is innocent, she does not know anything. Little birdie, but he likes Nora's foolishness and ignorance because they render her helplessness and therefore dependence on her husband. That is a very interesting thing. You like somebody's flaws because somebody's lack of any characteristics, because that help you exercise your authority and dominance. How selfish that is. It soon becomes clear to us that Nora's dependence, not Torvald's love for Nora as a person, forms the foundation of Torvald's affection for her. So we see that although Torvald would see and would imagine and would wish for to be a survivor and a guide-like figure for Nora, and would warn that Nora gets into a trouble, a kind of risky situation where he jumps in like a Superman and saves Nora's life. However, when it happens, when Nora is really in a situation when she needs his help, in fact help, he does not care much, and he is the one who basically makes her life miserable. In Act 1, we see that Torvald teases Nora about wasting money, but then tries to please her by graciously giving her more. So here what matters most to him is teasing Nora, letting her understand that she's the one who knows nothing. Money is not being problem here, because in fact if she's being taught about not to use money, she's given more money to use. So giving money to Nora is not an issue. Even Nora spending money is not an issue for Torvald. What is important to Torvald at this stage is letting Nora understand at each and every step that what she does is of no importance, and she needs guidance at any stage and every stage. Similarly, he points out her faults, but then says he doesn't want her to change a bit. So if there are really flaws in her character, a person who would love Nora would want her to overcome them, would want her to learn how to get rid of them. But Torvald has no problem with Nora's character. It's only that he would want to keep up his dominance, his power, his authority, and would not want to stop exercising it. He clearly enjoys keeping Nora in a position where she cannot function in the world without him. However, even if it means that she remains foolish, however, what we see, it's Torvald who would have not been able to find his health, would have not been able to move from Norway to Italy if Nora would have not been there, would have not arranged money for their travel. Okay, then we see, in general, Torvald disapproves of any kind of change in Nora's constant, obedient demeanor because he needs to control her behavior. You want someone to make mistake, so you correct the other person. It is that kind of attitude. When Nora begins to dance the tarantella wildly in Act 2, he is unsettled. In Act 1, Nora says that it would humiliate Torvald if he knew he was secretly in debt to her for his life, indicating that Torvald wants the power in his marriage to be one-sided rather than mutual. He would want to be the upper hand, the giving hand only. And how can he bear this fact that his life is basically saved by his wife, by a woman, by a foolish woman? So, now, do we see that the other question is, does Ibsen draw our attention towards any gender-related attitudes, any male chauvinism, any feministic attitude in marriage bond, in the relationship, in the institution of marriage? Are there any specification that Ibsen draws our attention to? What do you think about Torvald's constant criticism of Nora for her wastefulness and foolishness while simultaneously supporting her behavior? How would you defend Torvald's action, or how would you criticize Nora being the way Torvald sees her? What insight does this attitude give us into Torvald and Nora's relationship, marriage bond? So with these questions, I close our today's discussion, and I take you to the review of the lecture 7, seeing what we discussed today. We carried on with the discussion based on the themes presented in the play, and for this purpose, today we discussed the symbolic use of literary devices and symbolism used by Ibsen. We also discussed how Ibsen view the use of symbols in a play, and how did he use symbolic references in his own play. For that sake, although we discussed several symbolic references, we had an in-depth analysis of few of these symbols: the Christmas tree, skylark, toys, New Year, door, macarons, and the play's title itself. We also started our talk regarding another dimension of critical analysis, where we discussed the thought-provoking aspects, some other themes that Ibsen is presenting in his text, and we discussed the social attitudes toward money, and we also discussed the gender-related attitudes in marriage constitution. So let's have a look at what we are going to do in our next lecture. We will keep on discussing these thought-provoking aspects, and we will discuss in our discussion, do we find characters' development during the play due to their life experiences they go through? And do you think Ibsen's Doll's House is another return to his favorite subject, the social lie and duty? I'll see you in the next talk, inshallah. By then, Allah Hafiz.